town crier, announced the birth of Prince William and Duchess Kate's third child outside the hospital.
Feeling that we got when they came out with the baby, we couldn't miss it again. We couldn't miss this one.
What happens when three royal children walk up to a simple ice cream cart on a sunny afternoon? Most people would expect a quick photo opportunity and nothing more. But what Charlotte, George, and Louis did next wasn't just sweet, it was absolutely heartwarming. Their simple act of kindness reminded the entire world what true nobility really looks like. Can childhood innocence and royal upbringing create something truly magical? Stay with us to discover how one afternoon changed everything. A perfect summer adventure. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the English countryside as families began gathering for the annual village fair. It was one of those perfect summer days that makes you want to spend every moment outside. The sky stretched endlessly blue above rolling green hills, while a gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of blooming flowers and fresh-cut grass. Children ran between colorful stalls with balloons tied to their wrists and cotton candy sticky on their fingers. Parents followed behind with cameras ready and smiles that never seemed to fade. The village square had transformed into a wonderland of local crafts, homemade treats, and cheerful music that drifted from every corner. Red and white striped tents lined the cobblestone paths, each one bursting with handmade pottery, warm pastries, and volunteers who waved at every passing child. A small band played folk songs near the fountain while face painters worked their magic on giggling toddlers. The air buzzed with laughter, friendly conversations, and the gentle hum of a community coming together. It was exactly the kind of event that brings out the best in everyone. Neighbors, who hadn't spoken in months, found themselves sharing stories over jam-tasting booths. Elderly couples sat on wooden benches, watching children play the same games they once enjoyed decades ago. Local businesses proudly displayed their finest work, hoping to catch the eye of visitors from neighboring towns. The royal family had quietly slipped into this magical scene almost unnoticed. There were no grand announcements or security barriers creating distance from the crowd. Prince William and Catherine walked hand in hand with their three children, blending into the festival atmosphere like any other family enjoying their weekend. Charlotte skipped ahead in a light blue dress that danced with every step, her hair braided with tiny white ribbons that caught the sunlight. George walked with the careful confidence of an older brother, occasionally reaching out to steady Louis when he got too excited about something. Louis bounced between his siblings, pointing at everything that caught his curious eye. The family moved through the fair with an ease that felt natural and unforced. They stopped to admire hand-carved wooden toys, sampled fresh strawberries from local farms, and watched a puppet show that had Louis clapping his hands with pure joy. People nearby smiled and waved politely, but mostly gave them space to enjoy the day like everyone else. Royal children don't often get to be regular kids. Most of their public appearances involve formal clothes, careful behavior, and cameras capturing every single movement. But this sunny afternoon was different. This was real childhood happening in real time, and it was beautiful to witness. Charlotte, George, and Louis moved through the fair with the kind of freedom that every child deserves. They were simply three kids exploring a world full of interesting sights, sounds, and smells. George, now old enough to appreciate the responsibility that comes with being the eldest, still couldn't hide his excitement when they passed a booth selling miniature airplanes. His eyes lit up as he examined each tiny model, asking thoughtful questions about how they were made. The vendor, clearly delighted to have such an interested customer, explained every detail with growing enthusiasm. Charlotte found herself drawn to a flower crown stand where an elderly woman was weaving daisies and baby's breath into delicate circles. She watched with fascination as weathered hands worked with surprising speed and precision. The woman noticed her interest and showed her how to twist the stems just right, creating a small crown that Charlotte wore with obvious pride. Louis, the youngest and most energetic of the three, seemed to find magic in everything. He chased butterflies between stalls, collected smooth pebbles from the garden paths, and made friends with a gentle golden retriever whose tail never stopped wagging. His laughter became the soundtrack to their adventure, pure and infectious. Catherine and William followed their children's lead, allowing curiosity and wonder to guide their path through the fair. They shared quiet conversations with local artisans, complimented the volunteers on their hard work, and genuinely seemed to be enjoying every moment of this unexpected freedom. But it was when the children spotted something special near the far end of the fairgrounds that the real magic began to unfold. Then they saw it, a small ice cream cart that would become the setting for something truly extraordinary. The discovery that changed everything. The ice cream cart sat beneath a large oak tree, its pastel colors and cheerful decorations creating the perfect picture of summer sweetness. Hand-painted signs advertise flavors like strawberry swirl, vanilla dream, and chocolate fudge surprise. A jolly man with kind eyes and flour-dusted apron stood behind the counter, scooping generous portions for a steady line of eager customers. Charlotte was the first to notice it, tugging gently on her mother's sleeve and pointing toward the colorful display. Her face lit up with the kind of pure excitement that only ice cream can inspire in a child. George and Louis quickly followed her gaze, and suddenly all three children were looking at their parents with hopeful expressions. Catherine exchanged a knowing glance with William. This wasn't part of any planned schedule, but sometimes the best moments happen when you least expect them. With a warm smile and a gentle nod, she gave the children permission to explore this new adventure. The three siblings approached the cart with different styles that perfectly reflected their personalities. George walked with measured steps, already considering which flavor might be the best choice. Charlotte practically bounced with anticipation, her eyes darting between all the colorful options. Louis ran ahead, then circled back, then ran ahead again, unable to contain his excitement. Other families in line smiled at the sight of the royal children joining them in this most ordinary of summer activities. There was something heartwarming about seeing these often photographed children simply being kids, excited about ice cream on a warm afternoon. The vendor, a local man named Henry, who had been serving the community for over 20 years, recognized the family immediately but continued working with his usual cheerful professionalism. He had served everyone from farmers to teachers to visiting dignitaries, and he treated each customer with the same warm respect. Not far from the royal family, a young mother named Sarah stood with her 3-year-old daughter Emma, watching the ice cream line with worried eyes. Sarah worked 2 jobs to support her family after her husband had been injured in a construction accident 6 months earlier. Every penny counted, and treats like ice cream had become rare luxuries they simply couldn't afford. Emma didn't understand the family's financial struggles. She only knew that other children were getting ice cream while she had to watch from a distance, her small face pressed against her mother's leg as she pointed at the colorful cart, asking in her sweet toddler voice why they couldn't have some too. Sarah's heart broke a little more with each question. She had brought Emma to the free community fair, hoping to give her daughter a fun afternoon that wouldn't cost anything. But seeing all the other children with their treats was making it harder to explain why they had to say no. She knelt down to Emma's level and spoke softly about how they needed to save their money for important things. Emma nodded with the serious expression that children wear when trying to understand grown-up problems. But her eyes kept drifting back to the ice cream cart. Other parents nearby noticed the situation but weren't sure how to help without embarrassing the family. It's a delicate balance between kindness and dignity, and everyone wanted to respect Sarah's privacy, while also wishing they could somehow make things easier. This was the scene that Charlotte, George, and Louis walked into as they approached the ice cream cart. 3 privileged children were about to enjoy a simple treat, while nearby, another child could only dream of the same happiness. What happened next would prove that sometimes the most important lessons come from the youngest teachers. When hearts recognize hearts, Charlotte was the first to notice Emma. While George and Louis debated between chocolate and vanilla, Charlotte's attention was drawn to the little girl clinging to her mother's dress. Even at 9 years old, Charlotte possessed an unusual ability to sense when someone was sad, a gift that seemed to come naturally to her. She watched as Emma pointed longingly at the ice cream cart, then saw the pained expression on Sarah's face as she gently redirected her daughter's attention elsewhere. Charlotte didn't need to hear their conversation to understand what was happening. Some feelings translate across any distance, and a child's disappointment is one of them. George, following his sister's gaze, also noticed the mother and daughter. His protective instincts, already strong despite his young age, immediately kicked in. He whispered something to Charlotte, who nodded seriously. Louis, sensing that his siblings were focused on something important, stopped his excited bouncing and looked where they were looking. Without any discussion or planning, the three royal children seemed to reach the same conclusion at exactly the same time. They had been raised to understand that their privileges came with responsibilities, and this moment was calling for action. Catherine, watching her children's faces, could see the wheels turning in their minds. She had seen this expression before, the quiet determination that appeared whenever they encountered someone who needed help. She didn't intervene, curious to see how they would handle the situation on their own. The vendor, Henry, had also noticed the family nearby and the little girl's wistful stares. As a grandfather himself, he felt the familiar tug of wanting to help but not knowing the appropriate way to do it. He had been hoping someone might step forward to make Emma's day a little brighter. Charlotte approached the situation with the kind of gentle diplomacy that seemed far beyond her years. Instead of making a grand gesture that might embarrass Emma's mother, she walked quietly over to where Sarah and Emma stood, with George and Louis following close behind. Speaking in her soft, clear voice, Charlotte introduced herself simply to Emma, crouching down to the toddler's eye level. She complimented Emma's pretty dress and asked about the small stuffed rabbit she was carrying. George and Louis joined the conversation, their natural friendliness helping Emma overcome her initial shyness. Sarah watched this interaction with growing amazement. Her daughter, who was often quiet around strangers, was chatting animatedly with these three children who had taken such genuine interest in her. The royal children were simply being kind. After a few minutes of conversation, Charlotte stood up and walked back to the ice cream cart with a determined expression. She approached Henry and spoke to him quietly, pointing back toward Emma and explaining something that made the older man's eyes grow bright with understanding. George and Louis remained with Emma, continuing their friendly chat and keeping her entertained with silly jokes and funny faces. Louis, despite being closer to Emma's age, showed remarkable maturity as he helped his older siblings carry out their plan. Henry listened carefully to Charlotte's request, then broke into the widest smile anyone had seen from him all day. He immediately began preparing not one, but several ice cream cones, working with extra care to make each one perfect. But this was only the beginning of what would become the most talked about moment of the entire fair, an act of pure kindness. What Charlotte had requested was beautifully simple. She asked Henry if she and her brothers could pay for ice cream for Emma and any other children whose families might be struggling that day. She explained that they had noticed Emma looking sad and wanted to make sure every child at the fair could enjoy the same treats they were about to have. Henry was so moved by this request that he immediately offered to match their generosity, providing free ice cream for any family that needed it. The collaboration between the royal children and the local vendor created something magical, a moment where privilege and community spirit joined forces for pure goodness. Charlotte, George, and Louis returned to Emma with arms full of ice cream cones. They presented her with a beautiful strawberry swirl topped with colorful sprinkles, explaining that they wanted to share the afternoon treat with their new friend. Emma's face transformed from wistful longing to pure joy in an instant. Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes as she watched her daughter's happiness bloom. The royal children had given her dignity, friendship, and a memory that would last forever. The gift was presented with such natural warmth that it felt like friendship rather than charity. But the children weren't finished with their acts of kindness. They had noticed other families in similar situations and quietly arranged for Henry to provide treats for those children as well. They moved through the fair, like gentle ambassadors of joy, identifying needs and meeting them with remarkable sensitivity. George showed particular wisdom in how he handled the situation with older children, who might have been more embarrassed by obvious charity. He approached them as equals, striking up conversations about shared interests before casually suggesting they all get ice cream together. Louis, despite his young age, seemed to instinctively understand the importance of what was happening. He helped distribute the treats with careful seriousness, making sure each child felt special and included rather than pitied. Word of what the royal children had done spread through the fair with remarkable speed, but instead of creating a spectacle, it inspired something even more beautiful, a chain reaction of kindness that touched every corner of the event. Other families, witnessing the children's generosity, began looking for their own ways to help. Parents started sharing their extra snacks with families nearby. Vendors began offering small gifts to children who couldn't afford their wares. The entire atmosphere of the fair shifted from pleasant to magical. An elderly woman who had been selling handmade crafts decided to give away small wooden toys to any child who smiled at her booth. A teenage volunteer at the face painting station began offering free designs to children whose parents looked like they were counting coins. The spirit of giving became contagious in the most wonderful way. Sarah found herself surrounded by new friends, other parents who had been touched by what they witnessed and wanted to extend their own kindness to her family. By the end of the afternoon, Emma had not only enjoyed her ice cream but had also received a flower crown, a balloon animal, and several new friendships. Catherine and William watched their children's actions with obvious pride, but they were careful not to make a big show of it. They understood that the beauty of what had happened lay in its natural spontaneity, not in any public recognition or praise. The royal family continued to enjoy the fair for another hour, but now they were part of something larger than themselves. They had helped create a community moment where everyone felt included, valued, and cared for. As the afternoon began to wind down, one final surprise would make this day truly unforgettable. A community comes together. As the fair began to close and families started packing up their blankets and gathering their tired children, Henry the ice cream vendor made an announcement that brought tears to many eyes. Inspired by what he had witnessed that day, he declared that every month from now on he would designate one day as Kindness Day, when ice cream would be free for any child whose family needed it. The royal children's simple act of generosity had planted a seed that would continue growing long after they went home. Henry had been running his ice cream cart for 20 years, but he said that this afternoon had reminded him why he had started his business in the first place, to bring joy to children and sweetness to his community. Several other vendors made similar commitments. The flower crown lady announced that she would always have a few free crowns available for children who couldn't afford them. The toy maker decided to donate a portion of his profits to local families in need. The puppet show performers promised to give free shows at schools in less affluent neighborhoods. Charlotte, George, and Louis listened to these announcements with growing amazement. They had simply wanted to help one sad little girl, but their kindness had inspired an entire community to become more generous and caring. As the royal family prepared to leave, they were approached by many families who wanted to thank them. But the children deflected the praise, insisting that everyone had worked together to make the day special. Their humility in the face of gratitude showed maturity far beyond their years. Emma ran up to say goodbye to her new friends, throwing her small arms around each of them in turn. Her mother, Sarah, could barely speak through her tears as she thanked them for giving her daughter such a perfect day. The image of the 4 children hugging goodbye became the lasting symbol of everything beautiful that had happened. The story of what happened at the village fair spread far beyond the local community. Videos and photos shared on social media showed the world a different side of royalty. One focused on service, kindness, and genuine care. For others, rather than ceremony and tradition. People from around the globe commented on how refreshing it was to see young royals using their privilege to lift others up rather than set themselves apart. Educational experts praised the children's parents for raising them with such strong values and social awareness. Child psychologists noted how the siblings had worked together as a team, each contributing their unique strengths to help others. Charlotte's emotional intelligence, George's thoughtful leadership, and Louis's enthusiastic participation showed how children can learn to be effective helpers when given the right guidance and opportunities. But perhaps most importantly, the story inspired countless other families to look for ways to practice kindness in their own communities. Schools began organizing kindness projects. Parent groups started community support initiatives. Children everywhere began asking their parents how they could help other kids who might be struggling. The royal children had shown that true nobility is about recognizing your ability to help others and choosing to use that ability whenever possible. They proved that age doesn't matter when it comes to making a positive difference in the world. Their actions that sunny afternoon became a masterclass in empathy, generosity, and leadership that resonated with people of all ages and backgrounds. They had turned a simple trip for ice cream into a powerful lesson about what it means to truly serve others. The ice cream fair incident reminded many people of Princess Diana's approach to royal duty. Like their grandmother, Charlotte, George, and Louis had instinctively understood that real connection happens when you step outside your comfort zone to meet people where they are. Diana had been known for her ability to see individuals rather than crowds, to recognize need rather than just ceremony. Her children were clearly carrying forward this tradition of service, but in their own unique way that reflected their personalities and their generation. Catherine and William's parenting style had created children who understood that privilege comes with responsibility, but who approached that responsibility with joy rather than burden. They had been raised to see helping others not as an obligation, but as an opportunity to make the world a little brighter. The afternoon at the village fair became a symbol of hope for many people who worried about the future of the monarchy and its relevance in modern society. Here were young royals who could connect with ordinary families, who noticed when someone was struggling, and who took action to help without being asked or instructed. Their natural kindness suggested that the values of service and compassion would continue to define the royal family for generations to come. 3 royal children, 1 ice cream cart, and a moment of pure kindness that reminded the world what true nobility looks like. Charlotte, George, and Louis shared their hearts, creating ripples of generosity that continue to spread through their community and beyond. What small act of kindness could you do today to make someone else's world a little sweeter? Share your thoughts in the comments below.